We're ranking the 10 most famous Canadian whiskies, from bottom shelf regret to world-class sipper. Canadian whiskey has a reputation for being smooth. In the whiskey world, smooth is often a polite word for boring or watered down. Some of these bottles barely taste like whiskey at all, thanks to legal loopholes that let nearly a tenth of the bottle be additives. Others prove Canada can rival the world's best in flavor and strength. Which ones are just sweetened, watered-down blends, and which deserve a spot on your shelf? Let's find out. Starting with number 10. Black Velvet sits at the bottom for a reason. Launched in 1951, this whiskey is famous for its giant plastic jugs and a bargain bin price tag. Heaven Hill owns it now, churning out over 1 million cases a year, most of them destined for the value shelf in big pet bottles. The flavor is thin caramel with a sharp, hot finish that burns way above its modest 40% alcohol by volume. It is a masterclass in stretching every penny, more about logistics than legacy. If you want whiskey that tastes like it was designed by an accountant, Black Velvet is your bottle. Quantity over quality every time. Rich and rare is what happens when a whiskey tries so hard not to offend that it forgets to exist. Owned by Sazerac and often found for less than $15, this blend rules the shelf under $15. Pour a glass and you will notice almost nothing. No rye spice, no real oak, just a faint whiff of vanilla, and a finish that disappears before you can even decide if you tasted anything. The texture is thin, almost watery, and it goes down like a neutral grain spirit that once saw a whiskey barrel from a distance. It is not bad. It is just pointless. Canadian Mist was launched in 1967 by Brown-Forman with a promise to deliver America's lighter whiskey. That is code for a spirit so filtered and diluted, it barely registers as whiskey at all. The triple distilled claim sounds impressive on the label, but in the glass it means most of the grain and barrel character has been stripped away. What you get instead is a faint suggestion of brown sugar, a whiff of vanilla, and a finish that tastes suspiciously like wet cardboard. The only real way to drink it is buried under a mountain of ginger ale. Cleaner branding than the bottom two, but just as forgettable. Seagram's VO once carried the weight of Canadian prestige. Released in 1913 to celebrate a family wedding, it was the bottle you would spot on the mahogany shelf at any respectable bar, a symbol of refinement and good taste. For decades, VO was the toast of North America, poured for executives and party guests alike. But time has not been kind. After the Seagram empire collapsed in 2000, Diageo took over, and the careful blending that made VO special faded into the background. Today, it is a 40% alcohol by volume blend with a soft caramel nose and hints of spice that barely register. The finish dries out before it ever gets interesting. There is a faint echo of its former glory. Mostly VO just exists, reliable, but stripped of the character that once made it matter. Canadian Club 1858 owes its reputation less to what's in the bottle and more to its place in pop culture. Founded in 1858 and smuggled across the border during Prohibition, it became the drink of choice for a generation of American executives. Mad Men's Don Draper helped cement the myth. He is always reaching for a Canadian Club, calling it rye, even though what's actually inside is a blend of corn, rye, barley, and malted rye. The result is a whiskey that is dry, grassy, and a little sharp around the edges. It is everywhere behind the bar, poured into highballs and cheap cocktails, but it is not the real rye experience the old ads promised. If you are looking for depth or true rye spice, you will need to look further up the shelf. This is the turning point, from bland nostalgia to bottles that actually deliver flavor. Crown Royal Deluxe is the bottle that tricks you into thinking you are buying luxury, when what you are really buying is a purple velvet bag. Created in 1939 for a royal visit, It is now the world's best-known Canadian whiskey, and it dominates the shelves in the US. The packaging screams prestige, but the liquid inside is a blend of about 50 whiskeys engineered for mass appeal. The flavor is all vanilla, caramel, and maple, sweet, soft, and almost impossible to dislike, but just as hard to remember. At 40% alcohol by volume, it is smooth to the point of blandness. Most people pay extra for the bag and the name, not for complexity in the glass. It is the safe gift for Father's Day or Office Secret Santa, but real whiskey lovers know you are mostly paying a velvet bag tax. 40 Creek Copper Pot stands out as the bottle that finally rewards you for paying attention. Founded in 1992 by John Hall, a winemaker who brought a new mindset to Canadian whiskey, 40 Creek breaks with tradition by aging corn, rye, and barley separately before blending. This is not just a technical detail, it is the reason Copper Pot actually has body and depth. At 43% alcohol by volume, it packs more flavor than anything below it on this list, with rich notes of toffee, dried fruit, and a hint of baking spice. The texture is fuller, almost rum-like, making it a genuine pleasure to sip neat or use in cocktails. For the price, you will not find a better introduction to real Canadian craft. This is where bland ends and flavor begins. Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye shattered expectations when it hit shelves with a mash bill built from 90% rye grain. For decades, big Canadian brands leaned into soft, crowd-pleasing blends, but this bottle turned that formula on its head. Instead of vanilla sweetness, it delivers a peppery rush, real rye spice with a fuller body and a bite that stands out from the usual lineup. In 2016, Jim Murray's Whiskey Bible named it World Whiskey of the Year, the first Canadian to ever take that title. The reaction was instant. Bourbon and Scotch fans cried foul, while rye lovers finally saw a mainstream bottle with real character get global attention. Northern Harvest Rye didn't just win an award, it proved that even the biggest brands can make bold, flavorful whiskey when they stop chasing smooth at all costs. This is the bottle that put Canadian rye back on the world map, and it's the reason the top of this list is all about real flavor. Lot number 40 is the bottle that finally lets Canadian rye stand toe-to-toe with the best from the US. This whiskey comes out of Windsor, Ontario, made by Corby at the historic Hiram Walker Distillery. What sets it apart is simple: 100% rye grain, distilled in copper pot stills, bottled at a confident 43%. There is no corn filler, no shortcuts, no hiding behind caramel or sherry. Pour a glass and the aroma jumps out: clove, cinnamon, nutmeg, and a whiff of orange peel. The first sip is all baking spice and dark rye bread, with a creamy, oily texture that coats your mouth and lingers long after the glass is empty. Bartenders in Toronto and New York have adopted lot number 40 as their go-to for Manhattans and Old Fashions, and with good reason. It is complex enough to sip neat, bold enough to stand out in a cocktail, and priced far below the American craft rise it rivals. This is the bottle that proves Canadian whiskey can be world-class when it stops apologizing for flavor. Alberta Premium Cask Strength is the bottle that rewrites everything you thought you knew about Canadian whiskey. Born in Calgary at Alberta Distillers, one of the world's largest rye producers, this is pure, unapologetic rye, bottled straight from the cask at anywhere from 60 to 66% alcohol by volume. No shortcuts, no additives, no smoothing over the edges. It is built from 100% Canadian rye grain, grown on the prairies, mashed, distilled, and aged under the harshest weather swings the country can throw at it. The result is a whiskey that explodes with flavor, dark chocolate, spicy rye bread, menthol, dried fruit, and a heavy charred oak backbone that lingers for minutes. Each batch hits with a punch. Water opens up layers, but even neat, it is a powerhouse. In 2021, Jim Murray named it World Whisky of the Year, and critics across the globe called it the best value in the whiskey world. For the price, nothing else delivers this much intensity. This is not just Canadian whiskey that is good for a Canadian. It is world class, full stop. If you find Alberta Premium cask strength on a shelf, grab 2. Bottles disappear fast, and once you taste it, you will understand why. This is the top of the mountain, proof that Canada can make rye as bold, complex, and thrilling as anything from Kentucky or Scotland. Across all 10 bottles, one truth stands out. Canadian whiskey is a split personality, cheap blandness on the bottom, and bold rye brilliance at the top. The difference is not price, it is purpose. If you want real flavor, ignore the marketing and follow the rye. Drink smart, not just smooth.